Guys, devil fruits. One Piece has a bunch of wacky and crazy powers, but none are more unique than the devil fruits. Throughout the story, we've been introduced to so many fruits at this point that it's genuinely hard to remember everything that everyone does, which is why I'm on a mission to explain every devil fruit that's been introduced thus far, going through them faction by faction, while also giving devil fruits to those who don't have them. So lock in, because this is going to be episode 3 of Fruits by Groups. Baroque works. First, y'all, before we get into it, like the video, okay? That is incredibly important. Subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content just like this every week, and share it around with all your friends who love the series. You know what we always say here. Let's get it going. So here's the first thing to note, guys. We're not going to be explaining Crocodile Sunasuna no Mi or Robin's Hanahana no Mi. Crocodile is a warlord, and thus will be talked about when we eventually get to the warlord video, and we already talked about Robin when we did the first episode of this series in the Straw Hat video, which you should definitely watch after this one. Now we're only looking at the officer agents because they're the only ones that we actually care about. And out of the 10 officer agents, yes, we're including the dog, 8 of them have fruit powers. And out of those 8, only 2 of them are Zoans, with the rest of them being Paramecia. Remembering that by Alabasta, we've already had our introduction to Zoans through Chopper and Dalton. In addition, a lot of their fruit powers aid them directly in their professions of bounty hunting and assassinating, admittedly some more than others. And even within each duo, their powers usually tend to complement each other in some way. Since we actually have ranks by number, let's start at the weakest and work our way up to the strongest. As such, we are starting with the Kilo Kilo no Mi, or the Kilo Kilo fruit, eaten by Ms. Valentine, real name Mikita. A Paramecia type allowing the user to change their weight anywhere from 1 to 10,000 kilograms, with kilo coming from the Romanized Japanese word for kilogram, kilogramu. Now the major strength of this fruit is that the user can manipulate their weight at will. This is done without changing the size of their actual body. Their minimum is 1 kg, which is light enough to be picked up by a gentle breeze, while their max is 10 kg, heavy enough to one-shot dinosaurs. Even when changing their mass, the user can still move as if they're themselves. They also aren't affected by collisions made as a result of the power. So essentially, they don't take fall damage. And it's also easier to dodge because you can just float out of the way by making yourself 1 kg. Getting into the weaknesses, even with the weight change, it does not change the user's own resistance to actual force. So even if you're at the max, you can still be punched away. Also, if the user's goal is to slam down on the target may have ample time to dodge. It is also important to note that the Kilo Kilo fruit is the inferior version of the Ton Ton fruit, whose max just far exceeds it. Now while we have not seen Haki be used with this power, we can assume that one would be able to coat their limbs in Haki and just essentially make whatever attacks you would normally do stronger. Who knows, maybe a future sight user may be able to look into the future to see where their opponent is going to be so that they position themselves there to drop down. But I know that I'm reaching. As for awakenings, following the rules of Paramecia tells us that you would be able to change the weight of other things outside of yourself. And not gonna lie, that would be actually very useful, especially for transport. Imagine being able to make your house or ship just float. Actually, now that I think about it, this awakening just gives you the power of Shiki's float fruit, or being able to take something easy like pebbles and rain them down as hard as meteors. Hey, all I'm saying is, I would be better at using this power than Ms. Valentine actually is in the story. Speaking of, Mikita commonly uses this power in conjunction with her umbrella. Her go-to, and low-key only, is making herself 1 kg and then jumping up and letting their umbrella carry her high up before changing her weight to come crashing down, as seen with her 10 kilo press move. She also uses Crescendo Stone, a torture move where after sitting on someone, not like that, she gradually makes herself heavier and heavier, crushing them deeper and deeper into the ground. One might say that her power isn't all that explosive, but this next one is sure to give you a blast. You get it? Because next up we have the Bomu Bomu no Mi, or the Bomb Bomb fruit, eaten by Mr. 5, real name Gem, a Paramecia type allowing its user to make any part of their body explode, with Bomu just being the Romanized Japanese word for bomb. Now we actually learned this fairly recently in the manga, but the fruit was actually eaten by Gonzui of the Rocks Pirates. Sometime after his death, it was found and eaten by Gem. Now the major strength of this fruit is that the user can detonate any part of their body or their entire body at will, generating powerful explosions that damage anybody but the user themselves. This even extends to their bodily excretions, like blood, boogers, and even breath. As a byproduct, they're also immune to external explosions, which in the One Piece world where there's cannon fire raining everywhere, that's actually pretty useful. You also get a sense of evaluating explosions by eating them. However, it does seem like the user needs to be the one to initiate attacks, as if they're just hit externally, the power won't activate. Also, despite being immune to explosions, you still will be susceptible to fire. And I'm not gonna lie, I'm not really sure how Haki can interact with this one. I mean, you can't really coat explosions in Haki. As for awakenings, it's gonna be some sort of explosive world. You can turn whatever you want outside of you into a bomb. Like I could just turn the ground into a bomb and make it a continuous landmine. Gonzo and Mr. 5 use the fruit pretty similarly, in which they collect some sort of grime from their body, usually by picking their boogers, and flinging it or shooting it as long distance attacks. Whether it be Gonzo's Sky Snake Red Cannon or Gem's Nose Fancy Cannon. Mr. 5 also likes to eat explosions if he's around his allies because that way it'll protect them from the blast. He also has, and pardon me, I need to read it, a Flintlock 44 caliber 6-shot revolver, a special type of gun that allows him to turn his breath into bombs when he breathes into the chamber. And this one does pair well with his partner's fruit, because typically what will happen is that Mr. 5 will explode, and Ms. Valentine will use the force of that explosion to propel her even higher up for her own attack. Moving on to the next pair, Mr. 4 actually doesn't have a fruit, so let's talk about the Mogu Mogu no Mi, or the Momo fruit, eaten by Miss Merry Christmas, real name Drophy, a zoan type allowing its user to turn into a mole or mole hybrid, with Mogu coming from Mogura, which is the Japanese word for mole. Now the major strength of this fruit is that, while transformed, the user can essentially dig underground easily as if swimming through water, easily going through stone and sediment. In fact, in that way, it almost mimics the effects of the Swim Sim fruit. They also get these large claws the size of bananas, and they're pretty sharp. And they can also make molehills and tunnels that are all interconnected, allowing them to easily traverse through them and allies as well. But that leads into one of the weaknesses, which is that the tunnels can be used against them by enemies. Also, all the tunnels being interconnected is bad because if an attack is sent through the tunnels, then everywhere in the tunnels is going to get hit, or even if you're just standing by one of the openings. As with most zoans, using Haki with this power likely involves coating her claws and armament, but I imagine observation could also be useful while digging, because then you could actually get a sense of where people are at to pop out at them. As for an awakening, I guess you'd become an awakened mole, and I don't really know what that means besides gaining the cloud, but hey, if Kaku can do it, so can you. Maybe you just become Mole Man from Marvel. Now Drophy uses this fruit almost like a game of whack-a-mole, where she'll make multiple openings in the ground and then pop out to attack from wherever she wants, diving back in before her opponent can retaliate. She also likes to use the Mogurazuka Highway, where while underground she'll pop her hands out, grab her target's feet, and just start dragging them along the surface. She also pairs this well with Mr. 4's baseball fighting style, where she drags targets towards Mr. 4, and when she cries out the name, he gets ready to swing at them with a 4-ton bat. Speaking of Mr. 4, as I mentioned, he doesn't have a power, but you know who does? His gun. I wish I was joking, because we quickly gotta talk about the Inu Inu no Mi model Dachshund, which was eaten by Lasu, Mr. 4's bazooka. This is actually how we were introduced to the concept of inanimate objects consuming devil fruits through the process that Vegapunk created. And Inu is just the Japanese word for dog. You should remember it because there's going to be a lot more dog fruits coming up in the series. Now the major strength of this fruit is that you turn into a dachshund. What is special in Lasu's case though is that zones being given to inanimate objects grants them sentience. As such, Mr. 4 does not actually need to manually use his bazooka to fire stuff out because Lasu can just do it of its own accord. But I'm not gonna lie, this fruit is actually kind of bad for humans. The dachshund has exactly 0 fighting capability. Also, it is a very sickly breed, susceptible to disease. So you're likely always gonna have at least a cold, if not something worse. And as for Haki interactions, I don't even know. I mean, you as a person eating that fruit, it's not like you're gonna be shooting out anything that you can coat bullets in because you're not a gun. I mean, I guess you just power up your bites. And I mean, I don't even want to talk about the awakening of the dachshund fruit because that's even worse than the mole. But I'm not gonna lie, Lasu is actually useful specifically for Mr. 4 because the fruit allows Lasu to become a living, breathing batting range. It shoots out explosive baseballs at Mr. 4 who can then swing with his, did I mention it was 4-ton, bat and hit balls towards the targets. I mean, I think it's just pretty clear why this fruit was given to a thing that literally doesn't have a brain. If you own a dachshund, can you let me know, does it do anything? Moving on to the next pair, and again, we have only one of them actually having a fruit pack, as Miss Golden Week actually does not possess a devil fruit. Bookmark it, we're gonna revisit her soon. So now we got the Doru Doru no Mi, or the Wax Wax fruit, eaten by Mr. 3, whose real name is Galdino. Paramecia type allowing its user to generate and control wax, and Doru comes from Kyandoru, the Romanized Japanese word of candle. Now the major strength of this fruit is that the user can mold the wax into any shape that they want, and when the wax hardens, it becomes as hard as steel. It's also pretty resistant to acidity, as it was able to resist the stomach acid of the banana gator, and even counter the poison created from the Doku Dokunu. Also, your hair will light on fire anytime that you use the power. I mean, you can probably just like tilt your head like that and burn people, but you won't get hurt. However, the wax is a hard counter to itself, and if any piece of wax encounters another, both pieces will just crumble. It's kind of like dragon types in Pokemon. They will still melt to fire and heat if used against it, including the fire generated on the user's head. And tied to that, the user themselves just becomes incredibly weak when placed in hot environments. And what that means is, if I eat this fruit, I can never go home to Houston again. I imagine that as far as hockey goes, you'd be able to coat the hardened wax with armament hockey to make it even more durable. I mean, Mr. 3 is a Yonko commander now. He needs to lock in. As for awakenings, obviously you'll be able to turn your environment into wax. This being a substance paramecia, it essentially makes its awakening be similar to Doflamingos or Katakuris. Now the thing about Mr. 3 using this fruit is that he's an artist, so fashioning things out of wax is his whole bag. He can create wax statues that look exactly identical to the real person. Madame Tussauds need to hire him. And he can even make a giant wax cake to trap enemies in using Tokudai Candle Service Set. He got things like the Candle Lock to just encase his targets in wax, or even Candle Champion, creating a suit of armor out of wax to attack. It should also be noted that he created a key to Sea Stone Cuss, which is only important because again, they are sea stone, and it was also stated that he powered his ship with his ability, though it's not explained how. All I can say is, Mr. Miyagi! Now for something a little more interesting, we got the Mane Mane no Mi, or the Clone fruit, eaten by Mr. 2 Blanclet, a paramecia type allowing its user to turn into anyone that they've touched before. Mane means imitation in Japanese. But am I the only one who thought that the name clone fruit was actually really deceptive? Because I always thought that a clone fruit would allow you to create clones of yourself like Naruto, and this would better serve as some sort of like copy fruit in that you're copying their appearance. But that's besides the point. Now that I think about it, this is actually the second Baroque works fruit that first belonged to somebody else. Because back in the day, it was eaten by Kurozomi Higurashi, the creepy old bat who was an advisor to Orochi. That is, until she was killed by Kaido, and then her fruit went back into circulation. Now the major strength of this fruit is that the user can impersonate anyone that they touch with their right hand, perfectly mimicking their physical appearance and voice. The power activates by the user touching their own face with their right hand, and then they can revert back with their left. The fruit also keeps storage of everyone that you've ever come into contact with, so it's not like you just forget somebody. And there's also no time limit. But with this power, its greatest potential lies in deception and trickery, especially if used to impersonate somebody in a position of power. You could use their influence as if you were them, or completely ruin their reputation. And yeah, it's not much of a fighting fruit, but damn is it scary in its own way. It's not without its own fair share of weaknesses though. For one, you obviously cannot transform into someone you've never met before. No like pictures or nothing like that. But also, it may be harder to try and get into contact with somebody if the enemy is stronger and able to keep you at a distance. Also, when you turn into somebody, you do not copy their clothes, weapons, mannerisms, or most importantly, abilities. You can't use any fighting styles specific to the person unless you yourself are also trained in that thing. And the reverse is also true. You may not be able to use your own fighting styles unless the body that you transformed into is conditioned for it. Devil fruit powers, for obvious reasons, cannot be replicated, unless specifically copying the form of a Zoan user, because we see Banclay become Chopper at some point. Also, once people know that you have this power, countermeasures can be put in place to actually identify whether it's you or not. Oh, and you revert back when you're attacked. Basically, everything kind of comes down to your acting. Now, Haki's interactions with this devil fruit is interesting, because it will be dependent on your Haki abilities, not the ones of the person you're turning into. What I mean by that is, me just turning into Luffy does not mean that I'll have the ability to use Conquerors if I myself cannot use Conquerors. As for Awakenings, it doesn't really function the same as a normal Paramecia. My guess is that it could allow you to turn other people into other people, but that would just get way too hectic in terms of tracking down who's who. Alternatively, it could make it so that some of the limitations of the fruit are nullified. Like maybe now you can use their abilities or even Devil Fruit in Haki. Both Higurashi and Banclay mostly use it for deception and spying, able to become others to easily sneak into places, or become monarchs literally leading entire countries. I mean, Banclay was literally a key component in Crocodile's Project Utopia, as he wanted him to become King Cobra and ruin his reputation. Higurashi, meanwhile, was able to cause someone even as strong as Odin to falter when she tricked him into thinking that Momo was being captured by the Beast Pirates. Also, Mr. 2 is a comic genius, so he also uses it as a party trick. Also, little fun fact about Mr. 2 in case you didn't know, the reason that his full alias is Mr. 2 Banclay is because as an Okama, he occupies both the male and female roles, which is also why he doesn't have a partner. With that, there's only 2 more fruits to go, and I'm not gonna lie, they're actually pretty similar to each other. First, we got the Toge Toge no Mi, or the Spike fruit, eaten by Miss Doublefinger, whose real name is Zala, a Paramecia type allowing its user to grow and turn their body into spikes, with Toge literally translating to spike. Now, the major strength of this fruit is that the user can sprout sharp spikes from anywhere on their body, meaning literally anywhere can become a lethal weapon. The spikes themselves are easily strong enough to pierce through walls, and they have pretty fast activation, all things considered. And it's not only great for offense, but defense too, as if somebody's trying to hit you, you just protrude spikes and they'll get damaged instead. It even offers mobility options because you can create spikes on your soles and walk on the walls and ceiling. However, despite the spikes being pretty long, they are still at the end of the day mid to short range. And also, the spikes can get tangled in like cloth or any other sort of similar substance. And if that happens, they'll just get stuck. Now as far as hockey goes, even though we haven't seen it, this fruit theoretically pairs really well with armament, as most body altering paramecias do, enhancing the spikes with armament to make them stronger. And as for awakenings, just like most paramecia, you'll be able to turn all your surroundings into spikes, creating a sort of spike hell. Zala's most common usage of this power is to just quickly create spikes from her hands or arms, as seen with moves like Stinger Finger and Double Stinger. She can also make herself into a ball and then protrude spikes out that way, then hit a spinning dash attack like Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean, the move is literally called Hedgehog Stinger. And also, in a process that can only be described as somehow, she's able to inject herself with her needles, which causes a doping effect and swelling of her muscles. Yeah, Oda, I'm not gonna lie, you lost me on that one, gang. And now not only is this fruit really good for assassination, but it also pairs really well with the last fruit that we have to cover. And of course, that would be the Supa Supa no Mi, or the Dice fruit, eaten by Mr. One, real name Das Bones, a paramecia type allowing its user to turn their body into blades. Essentially, it's Miss Doublefinger's fruit, but blades instead of spikes. Supa Supa is a Japanese onomatopoeia for a clean, continuous slicing sound. Now, to our knowledge, this fruit has only been eaten by Das Bones, at least the original version. However, Vegapunk did synthesize an artificial version and gave it to Mihawk Seraphim S. Hawk. The major strength of this fruit is that the user can turn their body into blades, a byproduct of which allows the user's body to gain the properties of steel. They can cut through almost anything, and in turn are immune to most slash attacks themselves. The user can also cut things without the need to touch them, almost like the flying slashes that swordsmen do, as well as make the blades rotate like drills or saws. Now, the only main weakness of this fruit, aside from the obviously assumed devil fruit standard ones, is that while you are more resistant to a bunch of slashes, anyone who is strong enough to actually cut steel can easily cut through you, as shown with Zoro and Alabasta and Mihawk during the Paramount War. Just like the spike fruit, this one pairs really well with armament. And of course, awakening wise, you would turn everything around you into a blade paradise. Well, paradise for you, hell for everybody else, enhancing his punches, kicks, and chops by making them into sharp blades first, as seen with moves like Sparklaw and Sparkling Daisy. It can be used for defense using Spider, where he literally just makes the steel propertiness all over his body. 8 fruits later, and that does it for the official Baroque Works fruits. But real quick, I do want to bring the conversation back to Mr. 4 and Miss Golden Week and wonder what powers we could give them if they were to have them. For Mr. 4, I imagine some sort of paramecia bat fruit, as in wooden baseball bats, that allows him to turn his limbs into bats for hitting. Or maybe a bat fruit like the animal, to, play on that pun. It would also work because his partner is a Zoan. And Loki, now that I think about it, it actually works really well. Imagine Mr. 4 ruling the skies as a bat, and while Miss Merry Christmas rules the ground as a mole. I was gonna say some sort of baseball fruit, but a fruit that forces people to play the conditions of the baseball game seems too much like a Hunter Nen deal rather than a devil fruit. Very Good's ball fruit could be useful here, because maybe he can pop his own parts into balls and then swing that. Or maybe even Foxy's slow fruit, since he himself is ridiculously slow, so making others people slow could at least bring them to his level. Now, Miss Golden Weeks is even trickier because for all intents and purposes, it functions like a devil fruit. Everybody dead thought that it was a devil fruit for the longest time. In fact, I'm sure that there are some of you who didn't even know that it wasn't a devil fruit until I just said it right now. Oda confirmed it was a form of hypnosis, but it would be really easy to translate it into a devil fruit actually. Thus, giving her powers easy. Let's just call it the pain fruit and add the color strap abilities as facets of it. Alternatively, she could also probably make good use of Giola's art fruit. Maybe the art looks different based on who the user is, who knows? But that's gonna do it for the Baroque Works devil fruits, y'all. Which was your favorite? Which would you want to eat? And what group should we talk about next? Make sure to let me know all that stuff and more in the comments below. That is the end of the video, y'all, but before we go, like it, subscribe, and share it around with all your friends who love the series, or anime and manga in general. Remember, trying to build a community here, but I need your help to do it. That's gonna be all from me. I'll catch you on the next one, and always remember, one piece, one life.